Today, I am so happy to have with me Kate DeCosta. Kate is a fellow traveler on the long and winding road on the relatable journey to optimal health, emotional, spiritual, and physical. After more than a decade of research, education, and personal exploration, she found a way to optimize her own health through nutrition and other wellness practices, and this ignited a passion. Now she helps people to feel their absolute best. As a health coach, she knows that we don't just fall off the health wagon one day. The journey begins long before our first symptom materializes. And she stepped into her power in a major way as a kick-ass single mom, doing it all, working hard, building things, putting her kids first, and she even knows how to fix a lawnmower now. She's here to talk to us about her personal story, navigating the difficult experiences of life that impact all aspects of our health, and how we can take back our power to live in a state of ease and wellness, body, mind, and spirit. Welcome to Kate, a beautiful light in this world.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Mitzi.
Do you feel good now?
It's been a long time coming. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So I want to start out with taking everyone back to building up to the journey of how you got to where you are. So can you tell us where you were born?
I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, raised about 45 minutes southeast of that. Now with traffic these days, it's more like an hour and a half. But back in the day, it could be done in 45 minutes with no traffic. I grew up in a small town that was on the water. So I was very blessed to have access to the ocean and have the small town feel and very much rural kind of suburbia of America, and blessed to be by the ocean and have that growing up, and had my parents and my three older siblings, and we had a really good neighborhood, love the neighborhood clan that we belonged to and stuff. So it was a lot of fun. We'd hear like somebody yelling dinner time, and that's when we knew it was time to go home.
I
No
love that.
or anything like that. It was like free range.
Yeah, the old time neighborhoods where you felt you had a lot of security. You could go out, you could play, there was no worries. Yes. That sounds really idyllic, actually.
It was like looking back, like when we were growing up there, it was very much, oh my gosh, this place has nothing to do. Everybody's so boring, blah, 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 blah. But looking back on it, I am so blessed to have grown up in that area and having my own kids now. I'm like, that's obviously the kind of area that I want my kids to grow up in. So where I live now is a small town by the ocean. You never know where life will take you. So we'll see what happens in the next few years.
Yeah.
This is a stepping stone for me right now. We shall see.
And we're going to get into that. I'm really curious about what you feel the influence of the ocean has been on your life, because I think of the ocean as such a source of power. It's really a metaphor for Mother Nature and the ultimate kind of power, the flow, the ebb and flow of life and all of that woo stuff. How was it growing up so close to that? What kind of an influence do you think it had on your life?
I didn't realize how much of an influence it had on my life until I went away to college. And I didn't leave the state of Massachusetts. I went to UMass Amherst, which is in the Berkshires, which is gorgeous in and of itself, but it's in the mountains. It's not by the ocean. And I was really homesick. And I remember at one point, one of my sisters lived out in Colorado, and I went to visit her for 8 days. And I was like, oh my God, at the end of the 8 days, like, I got to get back to the water. I just didn't realize how medicinal it was for me, how cleansing. It has so many different moods. And it just, whenever I would feel upset or needed to talk about something or just think about things or anything, I would go drive by the water or sit by the water or listen to it, smell it, anything. Like even now when I go for my daily walks that I do and I'm like, have you been outside? It's always by the water because it's just something that I intrinsically crave. Mm-hmm.
I think even people that don't grow up with that do crave that as well. I remember as a teenager, we would only go to the ocean once a year. We would take a vacation to the Jersey Shore. Grew up in Pennsylvania. And that had such an impact on my life that as soon as I got my driver's license, the first place I drove, 16 years old, I took my 1966 Ford Falcon and drove it to the beach by myself.
But that's awesome. What a story that is.
Yeah, people feel drawn to it for a reason. I think that's just a really good tool also for people to keep in mind that if you are feeling down or you're having a bad moment, that if you can get yourself to some kind of a body of water and just sit there, it provides a lot of peace. It really is
Yeah.
medicinal.
Lake, stream,
Yep.
ocean, whatever it is. Yeah. And
Anything.
even just to piggyback on that, even if you can't get by the water, out in nature, get yourself by some trees, something.
Absolutely.
Hear the bark.
Absolutely. It's so true. And it's something you can do that costs nothing. And you can access a tree pretty much everywhere you live, even if you live in the city. Go and stand outside where there is a tree planted, even on your city street, and
Yeah.
just connect to that.
They probably think they probably don't think I'm weird, but other people that see my kids doing this may think that we're weird. But we have some little spots here that we like to go to that have little kid-friendly trails and stuff. But like we pick out our favorite trees and we hug them.
I love that.
You're me of a tree hugger now. I can't even believe it. And I just told the masses that.
There is something to that. There's
Mhm.
definitely, there is something about connecting with nature and touching a tree, connecting with it at that level. There's a lot about grounding. There's a lot of research on the grounding and earthing too, which I eat all of that stuff up. And it really helps. It really helps. Oh my gosh. So
That
go
the trees, the ocean, they do both do the negative ions and stuff. So it's definitely
yeah,
very good for one's mental health.
it is. There's science behind that. So if you go back into your life, what is your earliest memory? The very first thing you can remember in your life?
Oh man, I think about this. One of my earliest memories, I don't even know how old I was, but I remember being up in Maine with my family, and we were visiting my aunt and her family, and they used to live. I thought this was the coolest thing. My cousins lived on Cousins Island in Maine. I just thought everybody's cousins need to live on Cousins Island. But my aunt had a beautiful home and she lived with her now ex-husband, my uncle there. And I remember we were eating, I think it was clams or something like that. And I just loved it with the butter and like slurping it up. And my brother had had too many cherries and he threw up all over the place. And I just remember running around in the backyard, looking at the water and eating the clams. And then my mom like, Teddy threw up cherries all over. He ate too many. Yes, that's one of my earliest memories that I can fall back on.
That is the greatest. I love memories like that because that include like a family moment that seems random. When we think about why these memories are significant to us and why they're the ones we hold on to, there is a reason. So if you think about that memory, what do you think it means?
I don't know. Honestly, he threw up all over the camper, which is where we were like, we had a camper when I was growing up and we'd go camping and stuff. And so I just remember my mom being like, your brother eats too much. I don't know. I have no idea what that can, I don't know.
Well, it's like to me, it brings up themes of family, themes,
Mhm.
yeah, the relationships that you had and caring.
Trips with the camper and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those were big things as a kid. Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah.
doubt that was like, okay, doesn't seem like a big moment, but it is.
It is. It's a core moment. And the fact that you're made it stick out with your brother getting sick, that's funny, but yet it really points to the closeness of your family and how you took care of one another and that kind of thing. For
Yeah.
me, that's what comes up when I hear that. And it's really a good one. What about when you were in elementary school? What kind of a student were you?
Oh, ugh. I liked reading. I liked writing. I liked social studies and stuff like that. Loved biology, human biology, favorite. But the other sciences like chemistry and math, I wasn't always something that I excelled at. But yeah, and I always got in trouble for talking, always got in trouble for talking. I did like plays and stuff. And I loved singing. We had a play that we did when I was in fifth grade, and it was like our winter play or whatever. And I think it was Surfin' Santa was the name of the play. And I was Mrs. Claus.
Oh my
So
gosh. That's interesting. So as a child, you were very outgoing.
yeah, yep. I was very I like, and it's funny because looking at my daughter now, I see a lot of similarities to my parents. They're like, "Oh, she reminds you." I'm like, "All right," but yeah, I was outgoing. I showed everybody who I was. I had my heart on my sleeve. I was very just told it like it was and came from the heart and wanted to help people and all of those things. And then life happens and you get a little bit more reserved. Yeah. As a kid, I loved performing. I took dance 14 years when I was growing up. And I took tap, ballet, modern, point. I loved doing that. I did like a dance company with them and stuff. So I loved performing. Yeah, it made me feel good. It was a way for me to be artistic. It felt good being using my voice and stuff like that. And yeah.
Yeah. Is there a place in your adult life that you need to tap back into that?
Oh, 100%. And that's why I have dance. That's why I like doing dance parties with my kids so much, because music for me was huge growing up. My parents had this enormous record collection, and when nobody was home, the Beatles and Barbara Streisand. I started to get for club. Like not necessarily things that normal kids my age would. I don't know. Maybe it was normal, but I didn't necessarily listen to the same stuff that kids my age necessarily were listening to. I listened to more of kind of the classics and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a big thing for me. I love
Yeah.
music.
I love that. And so is there a song?
From my childhood, oh gosh, really, I loved like 50 songs, like Twisting the Night Away and stuff like that. When you're just having a good time. I loved, still love doing that. So I bring that out with my kids a lot, especially if everybody's starting to have meltdowns and stuff like that. Or even if I'm myself in a funk or something, it's like, all right, what are we going to do? We got to put some good music on. A lot of the times we listen to, my daughter loves Frozen, so we listen to Let It Go. And actually, while I was going through my divorce, that was my mantra. And I would definitely belt it out, listen to it on repeat and belt it out.
Well, there you go. That's our second tip for things you can do to make yourself feel better that costs nothing.
Yeah.
Put on some music. I love that. I think we do listen to the music that our parents have around the house. I did that. I was listening to the Bee Gees and Tchaikovsky and things like that when I was a little girl. And then I remember one day catching my daughter listening to 70s music on her own. That was something I listened to a lot. So I think that's a beautiful thing we can give to our children.
Absolutely. Yeah. When my kids start singing and stuff or like dancing, it like watching them, it just brings me a lot of joy.
A lot of times when I'll have to remind myself to sing. And I can remember being in a down period around my divorce and thinking to myself, it had been a long time since I had sung along with a song. That's a sign, if you look at it, of that you're in a funk, that you may be in some sort of a depressive period. Are you singing? Are you singing? Are you enjoying music? It's important. Yeah. It's really important.
I feel like natives in some land that's been like this is what we're going to, like a ruler of like, all right, where are you on this scale? And are you dancing? Are you enjoying life or are you not? And if you're not, then something's wrong and we need to help you with that and stuff.
Yeah. That's interesting. I think that the theme of dancing is something interesting to think about. I've never been a particularly good dancer in that sense. And people who feel that something doesn't come natural to them and then they avoid it. But dancing is about just moving your body to a rhythm and getting in the flow of a frequency. If you think of it that way.
Yeah.
Because I love to dance.
I lived with some girls in the Boston area when I was in my mid-20s, late 20s, and they were fabulous. They were art therapists. And so we were all like a little quirky. We had our own things and it was amazing. And they loved to dance too, but we did interpretive dance. So we'd put on some music and we'd all just do our own interpretive dance to the music. And it was amazing to just have that with two other people and to be like, yep, these are my tribe. It's weird with them. And it was pretty cool. It was an awesome time in my life.
I love that. I think it's really important to be around people who are going to let you be yourself. And when you tell stories and then they spark other stories in people, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, either feeling withdrawn and not wanting to express ourselves through dance or movement, or feeling okay about it and thinking you have to be like, quote, good traditionally at dancing or anything really. instead of just doing your own thing, that's really something interesting to think about. I can remember a time I enjoyed a very nice night with some friends and we were dancing up a storm and I was having such a good time and I was feeling really good. And then later on, one of the quote friends said to me, "You really shouldn't dance."
Ooh, not so much a friend then, huh?
Not so much a friend, not so much a friend, and no longer a friend, but it made me feel bad. And
Yeah,
I definitely was more reserved after that. And that's a shame. So I'm going to focus on getting my dance back out.
good. We could have dance offs with
Okay.
each other. They're like, "All right, we're doing interpretive dancing."
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Through high school, then I guess you were very involved in this type of performance stuff as well. Is that the case?
Actually, I switched things up a little bit. I still did dance, but I only did a year of theater, and I loved it. And my high school, we the some of the stuff that the performances that we did, we got to go to. There was like a competition, and as a freshman, it was unheard of, but I actually did get some small parts and stuff. So it was pretty cool. And I got some singing parts and stuff like that. So it was really cool. Unfortunately, the guy that was the director left to go pursue like his own acting and stuff like that, which I don't blame him for, but it really stung for me because we had a really good repertoire and he would start humming or singing a show tune song or whatever, and I'd name it. And it was just like we had a really good relationship that way. And I felt comfortable with him, even though he was an adult. Like I could, because he was theater. I feel like sometimes certain people, they allow themselves to be weird. And
Mm,
sometimes other people don't. And
mm-hmm.
he allowed you to be who you were. And if you wanted to be a weird person and do your unique whatever quirks that you have, he was all game for it. Whereas other types of people necessarily aren't that way. So he left, and I actually started playing field hockey. And so I played field hockey instead of doing theater, but I loved field hockey and made some fabulous closer relationships and stuff like that. I have a group of 7 girls that were like part of the field hockey group that we to this day are still very good friends. And every year we go away as a girls' weekend at least once a year, and we just get together. And yeah, it's really nice to have that still. While I let go of the theater, I got new friends and new relationships and new experiences. And I still had dance, so I was still able to get my artistic
Mm-hmm.
expression. And yeah,
So you were just getting to know yourself in different ways at that time
yeah,
as a teenager.
yeah.
Can you think of a time when you were in that age range of teen, kind of just coming into your 20s, that might be a good coming of age moment or a story that sort of punctuates that you were maturing or coming of age? Doesn't have to be positive.
I'm like, do you want happier? Yeah, I was dating somebody and I had been dating them mostly on for 5 years. In the beginning, it was a very loving relationship. As time progressed, things changed and they were similar age as me. So he probably was going through, I know he was going through his own issues, obviously. But we ended up getting into a big fight when we lived together in Providence, Rhode Island. And he was going to school to become a chef at Johnson and Wales. And I was going to aesthetic school. And he told me about all the girls that he had been cheating on me with over the past 5 years. And some of them I knew about, some of them I didn't. And a lot of them he had gaslit me about, being like, no, that's not true. When I could pick up on that something was going on, because I was very in tune with things like that when I was younger. And we got into a huge blowout. Told him I never was going to burn everything that had, and then he killed himself, and I found him. So it was pretty intense. So yeah, definitely grew up pretty fast right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that, Kate.
Sorry.
uh, that is heavy.
Yeah.
So I imagine that changed the whole trajectory of your life right there.
Yep. Yeah, it did. Or did it change it, or did it actually go where it was supposed to go and I just didn't envision it that way?
How did you handle that?
Not well the first few years, that's for sure. I did everything possible to put myself in situations where I could die because I wanted to, but I didn't want to kill myself. I just did really risky things because I felt empty and numb inside. And right around that same time, I had just been had been put on fusion for depression and stuff. And so when he died, obviously my parents came, like people finding somebody like that, it takes a huge toll on. And so my parents came and they uh, brought me back to their house, and I was under suicide watch for a long time. And I didn't know that at the time, but everything was just been a blur. I don't really remember that. I remember bits and pieces of it. I went to a lot of therapy. I went into a mental hospital a couple of times willingly because I didn't feel safe. So it was really, really dark period in my life. But what's interesting, because looking back, I know that things that happened to me as a kid and my family and stuff, that kind of prepared me for even even that happening. And then looking back at it now, as I am the age that I am now, looking back at it now, it's if I hadn't gone through that, then my divorce would have totally just annihilated me. Would I have been strong enough to do that? Would I have had the gumption to do that and stuff like that? And so looking back, I'm able to see that, yes, all of these things absolutely sucked. But if they hadn't happened in the way that they did, I wouldn't be who I am now. And I wouldn't be where I am now. And I wouldn't trade that for anything, because I am very happy with the person that I'm coming back to be,
Mm-hmm.
just who I was intrinsically as a kid, and being who I am, and without any inhibitions or trying to minimize those, and dropping the old stories and stuff that hold me back, and meeting new people like you and Craig and my partner now and stuff like that. I have so many blessings and so many good things that have happened. I am a firm believer that if you don't get that low, you can't get that high. It's like an arrow when you're being pulled back and there's so much tension. You feel like you're going to snap. And a lot of the times people, they want to give up right when they're about to be expelled out. And the arrow is about to shoot them forward into this unknown, amazing new trajectory of your life. And if you just hold tight and have faith and trust that everything will work out, it'll get there. You just have to sit in that. So I'm a big proponent, especially the past few years. One of my mantras was getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. For some reason, I just felt like I just knew on some internal level that was what was going to help lead me back to who I really am.
So when you say that you had things from your childhood that kind of set you up that you could handle what happened to you, are you talking about the fact that you did have a lot of stability in your family and positive experiences, or was there something else that might have prepared you for that?
I did have positive experiences in my family. I also had negative experiences in my family. When I was a kid, I had my mom, she had 4 kids. She was very overwhelmed. It was a lot. And when I was, I think, 10, my dad, I don't know what happened first. If my grandparents, all the 3 remaining grandparents that were still alive when I was born, all passed away in a month. And then my dad lost his job. And then we had to put our cat down like a year or two later. It was just things like that. And then I also had experienced some inappropriate sexual situations as a child in my family and stuff. And there's just a lot of things that, yes, I had these good things, but I also had these bad things, and I didn't really deal with them as a kid. I love my family, but we have the tendency to pretend like everything's okay. A lot of people do.
Yeah. Can relate to
And
that.
that's what was expected, to just pretend like everything's okay and nothing's wrong and maintain that at all costs. So that's what, and it's not like that was ever verbally really spoken to me, but that's just how it came across in the family dynamics of everything. And I mentioned it when I was in my 20s to other family members and stuff. And I didn't even really recognize it to myself and been like, because like to survive, I had to diminish how much effect it had on me. Because otherwise it's really like, how do you deal with that and still see the person, or how do you still function and live in the same place where all of that still exists? Like, you just make do. And I'm very grateful to myself and my coping mechanisms, because that's what got me through to where I am now. And so I'm very grateful for all the things that my body and my mind and everything did to keep me safe at the time. And now as an adult, kind of going through everything and being like, I've had some really crazy experiences emotionally this past year from being divorced and stuff, and taking a hard look at my life and my entire life and all of the emotional things that I shoved down and stuffed away and pretended like wasn't there and stuff has been coming up. And so it wasn't even until, I don't know, a few months ago that apparently my therapist, who I've been seeing for the past 4.5 years, she just knew about it. I just told her about it. And I didn't realize that I had never really told her about it, but I never told her about it. So I am just now being like, yes, this is something that happened to me. And even though it wasn't like as bad as some other people, that doesn't diminish that it was inappropriate and that it wasn't okay and that it was still crossing a huge boundary and wasn't something that anybody should ever have to deal with. And unfortunately, way too many people do. Just coming to terms with that and being like, wow, okay, what else we got in there? It's like Mary Poppins, the carpet bag,
Yeah. I like that I don't want to make light of anything, but I like that you have that mindset of that it is like a little bit of an exploration you have to undertake, because if you don't, then those things will fester and they will come back to bite you in the form of
Absolutely.
other things like serious problems like disease later on down the road.
So it's interesting you bring that up, because I actually have autoimmune diseases, and I actually have, like, yes, I have a lot of, and before I got divorced, I started having major gallbladder attacks. And according to traditional Chinese medicine, your gallbladder is where you store your resentment, and your liver is where you store your anger and stuff like that. And I still, to this day, because I'm still working through all of these things that I've repressed and stuff, I was having gallbladder attacks and stuff. And I think it was my body. I held my emotions there for the things that happened to me, especially as a kid. And then because I held it inside, because I wasn't taught how to safely have my emotions and stuff, especially anger and everything like that. I had to be a good girl and be sweet and all of those things. So because of that, it manifested as gallbladder attacks. And when I would get into a fight with my ex-husband or something, that area would literally flare up and start burning and stuff. So it's been quite an interesting journey to see where my emotions correlate in my body and stuff like that, and being like, oh, okay, yep, okay. No. And now being a health coach, I have the wherewithal and the hindsight to be able to see, oh, okay, and recognize all of these things and stuff. But at the time, it was just survival mode. So like I said, I'm grateful that I was able to get to where I am now. And now it's okay. Now it's time to go through all of these things and really just decide Is this
Right.
something you want to have holding you back all the time? Or are you ready to let it go and become who you're meant to be?
Yeah, absolutely. It is really interesting how you might have physical problems. A person might have physical problems, whatever they are. I'm going through something similar too, by the way, with symptoms that I'm having and also going through experiences of my life,
Yeah.
which I've done, but now I guess I haven't done the work as deeply as I need to do it. And I think that's the trick is that when you start to really go in there and do the deep work, and that will trigger you to get to know yourself. That's how you get to know yourself. And then you will make connections between aches and pains in your body, different types of things that come up for you, even disease. And you can look back and say, all right, what happened before my arthritis flared up? Or what happened before I got that migraine? Or what those kind of things. And when it's related to a particular organ of the body, I find it extremely fascinating with the
Mhm.
connections to Chinese medicine and whatnot, because it really does correlate. You can actually pinpoint things in your life that relate to problems in particular parts of the body and how they come
Yeah.
through the channels, the energy channels in the body. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. And
Yeah.
it's absolutely true for
Yeah.
me and for a lot of other people. I've been doing a lot of research on this lately. So I love that you're talking about this. Thank you for sharing all that stuff. I know it's hard to get to talk about those things, especially when it's something in your family and then this horrible situation with your first boyfriend.
It's all right. Like I said, I'm an open book. This
Yeah.
stuff, it made me who I am.
Yeah.
And so for that, I am grateful, much like the Blessings podcast.
Oh,
If it's not a blessing, it's a blessing, but
that's right.
mine are my blessings. It's just, everybody's got their own thing. It's just what you do with it.
Right.
And for a while, I definitely did think into the victim mentality and was like, oh, but yeah, at one point it's just okay, I don't want this to be my life. This isn't how my story ends. This isn't how I want things to go. And I'm not a tree. I can get up and leave. I can at any point decide how I want my life to be. I don't have to have this be the end. Once I made that decision and realized that I wasn't happy, this isn't what I want. This isn't what I want for my kids. This isn't like
Yeah.
all of these things. You do it.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So after you lost this boyfriend who you lived with in such a traumatic way, I imagine it was difficult for you to think about getting into another relationship.
Yeah, for a while it was. There were, again, I was very numb. And because of the things that happened in my childhood, I maybe saw sex differently than some other people might have. Looking back now, I realize that I didn't think of it as an energy exchange so much as I do now, where now I'm like very particular. Okay, I don't want to be like, I wouldn't want, I've definitely gotten way more. But back then it was like, oh, some guy's paying me attention. He must like it was just,
Mm,
you're in your early 20s and you don't have good self-esteem and you just had some trauma and stuff. You are ripe for the picking for terrible boyfriends. I'll tell you that much. And I went through a slew of them in my 20s. And it wasn't until I started dating my husband that I felt like I had finally found somebody that wasn't a complete, like just complete crazy person. But a lot of that I feel like came from the inside, what I allowed and what how I felt about myself and how I treated myself and stuff like that. And so looking back again, I'm able to see, okay, I didn't feel good about myself and I didn't treat myself, obviously, trying to do things to put myself in harm's way and stuff. So how could I expect anybody else to treat me good or to put me in an area where I demand respect and all of these things when
mhm.
I'm not demanding that of myself.
Could you attract someone at your level of self-esteem, basically?
Yep. It's
So you're
all
going to
about your
attract troubled
frequency.
guys if you're not.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So you did meet someone that is your ex-husband now at some point. So what time of life was this? How old were you and what was going on?
I met him when I was in my mid to late 20s. We were friendly for years. My friends from high school, my guy friends from high school, they all played softball in a softball league that they had started up with Boston Ski and Sports Club. When I moved back I used to live in St. Thomas for a year and a half. And when I moved back, they were all already doing that for a year. And I'm like, oh, that sounds great. So I started doing it too. And he played softball and we would flirt, but it wasn't, I just figured it was softball. We're just not anything. That went on for years. And apparently some of my guy friends were like, don't do it. And then one of my guy friends was like, yeah, ask her out. Why not? And so he did. And I said yes. And the rest is history in that aspect that we did start dating and stuff. Looking back, I wasn't being myself, so I can't really say that we weren't a good fit because at the time, how I presented myself, we were a good fit, but who I was intrinsically was not being shown. And so in reality, we were not a good fit. And that is what we found out along the way, years later, 11 years into the relationship. Again, that was a reflection, I think, definitely of me not feeling that I deserved good things, that I was worthy, and that I would find somebody that gave me all of the feels that I wanted to feel. I maybe settled because I was 36 when I got married. So I was later in life and stuff. And yeah, I was just worried that nobody would want me, which
Did you
is a
know
terrible.
when you got married, did you know that it wasn't the right decision?
The day I got married, my best friend told me that I didn't have to do this. I said, I know. And I still did it because he will be a great partner for somebody else. But for me, it's not a good fit anymore. That's just the way it is. And when I went to the school for health coaching, there was a woman who did one of the lectures, and I'm drawing a blank on her name, but what she said was so profound to me. She had been married for 5 years as well. And I hadn't filed for divorce yet. I was culminating the thought in my mind and kind of building up courage and being like, is this really what I want to do? This is a huge life change. We have kids, all of these things and stuff like that. She said, growing up Catholic, you don't get divorced. My parents fought all the time. I heard them talk about divorce, but they never got divorced. So for me, I was like, hey, is this what I want? But then things started happening and I was just like, this isn't what I want. But she said that her divorce wasn't a failure. It had an expiration date. And that, just her saying that, clicked something inside me that was just like, okay, I'm not a failure. This isn't a failure. It wasn't a failure. You don't have to think like that because that's what a lot of society puts on when people's marriages don't pan out and stuff like that. And it's on paper, it didn't look like we had a bad marriage per se. It's not like he was physically abused. We didn't have any of those things. My soul was dying inside. I couldn't be who I really am. And neither could he. And that isn't how I want my kids to be brought up, because that's how I was brought up, was seeing like the fighting and the arguing and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't want my kids to grow up thinking that this is what love is supposed to be like. And with my parents, there was always the undertone of love, even when they fought. If my mom had a bad day, my dad would stop what he was doing and go and give her a hug to make her feel, to be like, I'm sorry you're having a bad day or whatever. My marriage got to the point where I didn't have that. So I definitely didn't have anything like that to fall back on, to be like, at the end of the day, we have this intrinsic love. Literally, the only reason we were married or still married was because we had kids together, and because it was too expensive to get divorced. I'm like, this is not how I want my kids to be, right? This is not what I want them to see as what marriage and love is supposed to be like, because that I grew up in a situation, not the same, but similar to this. And one of my older sisters married. My brother never got married. But it's just, there's just lots of things that I'm just like, okay, clearly we didn't have the best role
Mm.
model for what a healthy marriage is supposed to be like. So let me give my kids a better starting point than what I had.
Yeah, everything you just said is so relatable to me, and I'm sure to many other people. People are really on a journey to try to find themselves in this life. And some people don't get very far, but the people who do will change. Things will change. We do change. We're growing, we evolve, we change. We're supposed to change. And
Hmm.
when you do that, you may not be aligned with your partner any longer that you when you were originally aligned. And that is natural. It's totally natural for that to happen. And then whether or not you make the decision to stay together does have consequences as to what your children are going to be exposed to and how they're going to perceive a healthy relationship going forward. So it's always that conundrum. Is it better for them to see, for me to stick it out and have a bad relationship, or for them to see what a healthy, loving relationship looks like? And obviously, I chose the latter as well. And I commend you. I think when you are able to step into your own power and know that you're not in alignment with something, it's definitely not a failure. I was married for 16 years.
We were
So,
married for 5 years,
oh,
but
5 years.
together.
Okay. But you were together for a long time. That is not a failure in my book. That is teaching you a myriad of lessons that you can use to continue to improve going forward for yourself and also for your kids. So
Yeah.
what would you say is the biggest thing that you learned in your marriage?
Oh, that even that relationship was a mirror for myself, which is not a fun thing to think about or look at or even want to even contemplate, that I could have the same behaviors as the person that I'm saying has these terrible behaviors towards me. That there is a part of me that has in my past or has the capability or whatever it is that I can be like that too.
Wow.
Nobody else to think about that.
I want to write that down as a journal question. I want everyone listening to think about this right now because that is so important. How is a difficult relationship that you're having right now a mirror for something in yourself? That's very profound.
Everybody wants to be like, oh, and this
Yeah,
is
it's not
it.
me, it's them, right?
Right. And I take full responsibility for my own actions and stuff.
Yes.
And my part in it, there were times that looking back that I'm like, wow. And to this day, like I still in my mind send him love and wish him well and happiness and stuff like that because he's not a bad person.
Yeah.
He's just not the person for me.
And that's okay. There's plenty of people I can say that my relationship is probably 95% similar to everything you're saying. And I relate to it so much. And I think sending the person love, even though you're going to continue to go through difficult times because your kids are little, you're going to have disagreements and it's going to be rocky at times. But
Yeah.
being able to hold that in your heart, to be able to just send the person love and wish them well, that's key. It is, and it's going to keep you in a good state of mind. And
They say holding on to anger and stuff like that and negative emotions as if it's going to harm the other
yeah,
person only harms yourself.
that's right.
So,
It's like
and it's
taking
not like
poison
I'm
and expecting the other person to die, is what they say.
exactly. And it's not like I'm doing that for that reason, but
Yeah,
because of my life story and the things that have happened in my past, I know very well that is actually a thing and that it
yes,
happens. Hello, gallbladder.
absolutely.
So,
That's right.
like,
And yeah, and had you stayed in that relationship, who knows how that would have manifested it. That's another issue. Like these things are seriously problems that can turn into health problems later on. It's craziness. Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
breast cancer. I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of that stuff. Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. And like thyroid issues and stuff,
Yeah.
not speaking your voice. Yes. 1,000%.
Yep.
Hmm.
Hearing problems.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of those things. And I think this stuff is coming to the forefront so much more now. There's a lot more people talking about it. There's a lot of great books on these subjects. And you really have to dig into your story and your life and be willing to do some inner work so that you can try to affect your health in the present and in the future. So let's switch gears and talk a little bit about health. So you've been, just to clarify the timeline, are you completely divorced?
Yeah, actually, July 1st was the technical 1 year
Okay.
anniversary. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
All right. Okay. So now you're in a new phase of your life. So I know that you worked as an esthetician, you went to school for that, and you're still doing that, right?
yeah.
But you're also doing the health coaching, which is your primary focus now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting how our life experiences that might put us in our lowest moments are the ones that prepare us to become experts in things moving forward. What are you an expert in now?
I am an expert in recognizing myself in other people, which I think is actually a superpower, because then that allows me to hold space and have the empathy and compassion for people coming to me and telling me what's going on in their life or what health problems they're having or anything like that. And because I've had so many different experiences, that makes me pretty qualified to talk to a lot of people about different things that could be happening in their life, because I've had so many experiences in mine as well. And seeing myself in other people and recognizing, oh, there's an aspect of me, or there's an aspect of me, or there's different clients that I see. Oh, yes, I can see where this relates to that in them and stuff like that. It's really cool. And when I was going to health coach school and they even talked about how you would start to notice things like that.
Yeah.
And that you would start to like call in certain types of clients and stuff like that. And I was like, you're like, yeah, you hear it. But then when it started happening, I was like, oh my God, this is pretty cool.
It is. Isn't that cool?
And
I feel like that's true. Everybody that comes into your life is there to show you something about yourself.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah. It
there's
could
always a
even be
lesson.
somebody that you have like absolutely nothing really in common with them on paper, but then they start talking and telling their story or whatever, and you're like, oh my gosh, this correlates with this, or I understand this because of this. And obviously I keep all of these things to myself as I'm like giving them a facial or they're telling me their story or something, but it's just pretty cool doing that, because it allows me to authentically be myself while also showing up for other people and holding space for them and their own traumas and their own life stories and things that maybe they don't feel good about themselves about and stuff. And I'm there to tell them that's a beautiful part of you too.
Absolutely. All of your scars are beautiful, and even in your wounds and all of those things. But that's how we learn more about ourselves, is by listening to other people tell their stories. Because whenever somebody tells a story, it will trigger something in you. It's always that when someone's talking to you and you're immediately like, oh, you want to tell the story about how you experienced something similar. It makes you connect to
Yeah.
yourself, not just to them, to yourself. And it's the connection to the self that really is the key to healing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was thinking about this phenomenon the other day, and so I wanted to get your take on it. So in life, we have these moments, and I coined them cheeseburger moments. That when you're doing something that in the moment it feels really good, it tastes really good, and you're really enjoying the experience, like eating a cheeseburger. But then later on, it makes you feel like shit.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to decide, like, what things are worth it. What about those cheeseburger moments of life? Like those times when you're in something and it really feels good in the moment. I don't know, going out drinking, eating something bad, participating in some sort of a vice. Later on, it's going to feel bad. What do you think about those moments of life? And does that make you think of a story in your own life?
Yeah. I have a lot of those moments.
Cheeseburger moments or chocolate cake moments. I thought, I didn't know which one to call it, but it's one or the other.
I'm more of a chocolate cake person. I'm gluten-free now because I have to be,
I
but it's
know.
so funny because I do try to do gluten-free chocolate cake. which is just as bad, if not worse.
Oh,
But yeah,
I know.
for me, I are like when I'm stressed out, this is very relatable for me on so many levels because when I'm stressed out, and this is a coping mechanism that have struggled with on and off since I was a kid, but I tend to either, when I'm really stressed out, I either overeat or I don't eat at all.
Mm,
And if I overeat, it's like binge eating. I don't purge or anything, but I'm not just going to have 3 cookies. I'm going to have the entire row. Or if it's a really bad one, then I'm going to also have the entire row and I'm going to have a pint of ice cream. How
mm,
much food, like just trying to fill the void and stuff like that. And now when I do it, I don't do it as extreme. I'll be like, all right, I'm only going to have half the sleeve of cookies or half the pint of ice cream. I, and I still, even now, the next morning, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that or whatever. But you know what? I give myself the grace. I stop that negative talk and I even say, no, you know what? You're going through a really stressful time right now. It's okay. You're going to pull yourself back out of this. You know, you can. You have in the past. It'll be okay. You can have bad moments. It doesn't mean the whole chapter. You can have a bad page in the chapter of your life. It doesn't mean the whole chapter is bad. Or you can
right.
have a bad paragraph. Doesn't mean the whole chapter. Like, just it doesn't have to be so black and white. I'm finding out as I've gone through life that everything is gray.
Ah, so true. Yeah. And then you can always make the decision to do better the next time. And you can make decisions about, all right, what's worth it to partake in. And I think if we're talking about health, then you may get to the point, for example, with like eating, and gluten is a good example. I know now that if I am going to eat gluten, I'm going to have certain neurological symptoms that I don't want to
Mhm.
have, and they're scary. And so it's gotten to that point for me with gluten, and also probably with alcohol as well. So you can see connections and then make an informed decision.
Yeah. And if you mess up, the trick is to not beat yourself up
Right.
about it because that just perpetuates that loop.
Yeah. You don't want
And
to attack yourself. You never want to
right,
attack
I don't
yourself.
want to be in that loop anymore. Like the whole reason why I'm doing this is because I was already feeling bad because I'm already stressed out.
Right.
So I
Right.
don't need to continue that loop. Just be like, okay, and leave it and be like, okay, that happened and go on about your day. Don't marinate over it. It's not teriyaki sauce. You're not a steak. You're not trying to be
You don't need to marinate in it. That's
right.
so true.
Exactly. Just be like, okay, that happened and move on. And I say
Yeah.
that and it's the hardest thing in the world for me myself to do. I say this for other people, and it's so easy to give this advice to other people, but doing it for myself, it's a constant self talk that I do in my head all day long. And it's literally just something that I apply every day. And it's something that I've started to do over the past few years. And so it's getting easier and easier, but it's definitely even when I don't even realize that I'm doing these things, somebody will call me out on it and they'll be like, hey, stop talking bad about yourself. And I'm like,
Hmm.
oh my God, I didn't even realize I was doing that because it's so ingrained. And I'm sure a lot of other people can feel this too, that they don't even recognize it and stuff. And so I actually like it when people call me out on it because then I'm like, oh yeah, I am doing this or I am saying this. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be about myself, but if I'm doing something and it's bothering you, tell me about it. Because if I don't know, how am I supposed to be mindful of it or
Hmm.
change how I approach things or anything?
Yeah,
The first step for changing anything is to be aware of it.
that's right. Absolutely. So as a health coach, you're concerned with the holistic person. You're concerned with the things that they're talking to themselves about, their inner thoughts and their self-talk and all of that. You're concerned about their nutrition, you're concerned about their lifestyle things. So what's
Mhm.
one of the top things that you see people struggling with the most?
Self talk is actually huge. And a lot of people have the guilt and shame.
Mm,
A lot of people have guilt and shame from growing up and they just hold on to it.
mhm,
They hold on to it really bad. I myself, this is something that I have been practicing and working on for myself as well, because, and like we've talked about before, I see myself in other people. And so the more I'm aware and I'm like, oh my God, oh my. And so having all of these aha moments throughout the day, interacting with other people and being like, oh my God, that is a huge one that I see that kind of goes into the self-worth and stuff like that. And I really think that just self-love, everything can be boiled down to that, to the self-love. Why are you talking bad to yourself? Because you don't intrinsically think that you deserve to be treated well. Why not? And that's the self-love. Why are you shoveling food in your face? Like, why aren't you going for a walk? Why aren't you treating your body like the temple? Because it's the only meat suit that you got this time around. You got to treat it well. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to live to the full potential that your life can be lived to. And everything that I have noticed, it comes down to how much you love yourself and whether or not you think you deserve these things. And if you love yourself, then you take care of yourself. If you love yourself, you do nice things for yourself. You treat yourself like a friend. And that's a really hard and foreign thought process for a lot of people to just be like, it's interesting because I find it with the people that give are the most loving to everybody else. I find that those people are the ones that don't give themselves any love. And those are the ones that like I have the hardest time because they're so busy giving it to everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And having kids really brought this to the forefront for me that you can't pour from an empty cup at all. And I was able to understand, I'm able to understand my mom's overwhelm and some of her reactions and things like that, which has been really healing for me from my childhood and stuff. And understanding her and where she was coming from, being overwhelmed with kids, because now I've got some of my own and I'm like, oh my God, sometimes overwhelmed. And you're just like, when they're this little, you're just like, life's kind of just all up in the air. And I don't know. It all just comes back to loving yourself and giving yourself the grace to not be perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was thinking about mothers when you were talking about self-love. I was like, mothers are the most guilty of constantly giving to everyone else except themselves. It's a very big problem and something mothers should be aware of.
On airplanes, put your oxygen mask on first before putting it on anybody else's. There's a reason for it. If you aren't taking care of yourself, you don't have the ammunition, the wherewithal, the strength, and the perseverance to be able to help anybody else around you. And having kids and then doing the health coaching and stuff like that really brought that to the forefront for me, because I grew up thinking of myself and stuff like that was selfish. And I think that happens to a lot of people, is that putting yourself first, you're considered selfish. And it's like, why wouldn't, this is my world. Why wouldn't I want to put myself first? Why wouldn't I show myself love? And if I don't like what's going on, why wouldn't I say anything? But
I think that's a cause of a lot of distress, that societal construct that you be treating yourself well is selfish in a negative way, because that causes a lot of problems down the road. Do you think that a person can have optimal levels of self-love without going back into their story and doing some work?
Can you love someone after knowing them for only an afternoon? In my mind, it's something similar. Yes, you can love what you know about them. And I'm not saying that you have to like take on years worth of therapy and this, that, and the other thing, but you do have to acknowledge the things that happened in your past that made you who you are. If you don't acknowledge and really know that aspect, how can you really know yourself? Because that was formed from all of these things that happened. And you have your intrinsic personality and stuff like that when you're born and everything. A lot of our stories and stuff that we have about ourselves are come up from our environment and the people that we surround ourselves with. And I think not having that as a background sets yourself up for a more superficial relationship with yourself when you
Yes.
really want it to be more full bodied and to know all of you and to accept all of you, even the bad stuff, even the stuff that you don't want anybody else to know about.
There's really no sense in carrying shame. That really only is a form of attacking yourself, which doesn't serve. As a single mom doing everything on your own, how do you stay strong?
So this goes back to what I mentioned about how everything in my life has led me to where I am now and has made me be able to withstand the spot that I'm in now without breaking. So if all of these things hadn't happened as I was growing up, I wouldn't be like the divorce would have done a heck of a bigger number on me than it already did, which wasn't nice. And I'm still reeling from it in some aspects, but not much can compare to finding somebody that you loved hanging in front of you. So at the end of the day, I had that as my like, okay, I made it through that. I know I can get through this. I made it through that. I was protected through that. I was seen through that. I had lots of love from people. I had God protecting me. I knew that I could do this because I'd been through worse.
Mhm.
And that's what I fall back on. I've been through worse. That not other than one of my kids, God forbid, that's probably one of the worst things that I will have to deal with in my lifetime, hopefully.
Yeah.
Divorce was definitely up there, but it's just different.
Yeah.
And so I had that to fall back on. And going through the divorce, that was that. Now, a year post, it's look at how far I've come in this past year. Look at how much my life has changed, complete 180. And looking at my kid and looking at myself, those are the whys. They're why I'm strong. In my mind, there's no other option. And I know other people, they say, oh, you could have an option, but that's just not, for me, that's not an option. It's just not.
Yeah. And I think stepping into your own power, your own self-worth, and getting to know yourself can then attract situations to come into your life which are more aligned with the person that you are now. And so I know that you have a very strong relationship and you found your true love in your life. So I want to know, what are the green flags for opportunities and relationships? What are things that tell us to say yes?
Honestly, so with him, I let go of all of I wasn't looking. I certainly wasn't
Mm,
looking for anything.
mhm.
Definitely wasn't. And in fact, had said no to people from the past that were like, oh, things aren't going well for you. Let's see, that
Yeah.
came sniffing around and
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
like that. And so I said no to that because if that was where I was supposed to be, I would be there. You
Mm,
aren't who I'm supposed to be with because otherwise it would have worked out. And you didn't show me and you aren't willing to give me what I want. And I'm not willing to lower my standards to be with you.
mhm.
And that standing firm in that boundary and having that thought process and standing firm in it and letting go of attachments to previous people that could have been, in my mind, in the past, oh, they could have been no. So if they were supposed to be, they would have been. And so letting go of that and focusing on myself and becoming the person that I want to be and that I would want to date. And just that opened up space to allow him to come in because we were a vibrational match. We align. He is a very safe person for me. I know that I can trust him implicitly.
How do you
And
know? How do you know? What are those signs that people can look for if they're looking for that safe person?
so this is going to sound weird, but how somebody treats somebody when they don't realize anybody's watching them, like the toll booth operator at the
Mm,
parking lot, or the waiter, or just little things like that tells me a lot. And just little stories and stuff, little things that I notice, like how they treat their kids, or little things like I pick up on those things. And so those were green flags for me, especially coming from the past that I have. It was very important to me to make sure that I could feel safe with this person. And I also made sure that I wasn't putting on any airs. I wasn't expecting anything out of becoming friends with this person or talking with them. I wasn't expecting anything out of it. I just was talking about health coaching and stuff like that, and really passionate about things going on health wise. Oh, can you believe this drug got approved? Or can you believe that Monsanto, just things that were important to me were also important to him. And in the past, that hasn't always been the case.
mm,
But again, that was me not showing up authentically. So can I really
mm.
blame the other person in the relationship, or is that me not being myself? So that's this time around, I didn't have any expectations. I wasn't trying to put on any airs. I wasn't trying to see what he liked and be more like what he likes to do or anything like that. It was just me embodying who I am and being completely myself. And you can either take it or leave it. And me being able to be myself, and him taking it, and us still like working well together. Because in a lot of areas, that's not always the case. If
Yeah.
you try to be fully yourself, other people try to put you down, or
Yep.
they'll be like, "Oh, you're weird," or they'll
Yeah.
just put their prejudices and their
Yeah.
judgments on you.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that with him.
Yeah.
I felt I could be myself, and I didn't
Yeah.
feel like I had to do anything. I didn't have feel like I had to put on a show
Hmm.
to make him, which
Yeah.
for my background, I love doing, but I didn't have to do that with him.
Yeah. That's such a good point. I don't take those things personal anymore. When someone says something to put you down, when you're acting your true self, or you're acting weird, or you're just being like really extreme you in whatever way, the people who put you down are just not your people. And that's just information. Yes, exactly. That's how
Yeah,
now I feel like, okay, you're not my person. I'm not going to change who I am so that you'll like me.
right.
It's
Well, that's
ridiculous.
how I ended up divorced.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. What are your personal dreams?
Dream is I want to help as many people that feel like they could be stuck, or feel like they are meant for more, or feel like something's just not right in their life, be it physical, emotional, mental, whatever it is. I want to help people realize their fullest potential. So if that means like, oh, you need to get your health so that you can go for that marathon run that you've always dreamed of doing, whatever it is, I want to help people actualize their dreams, and to remind them that at any given moment, the way their story is now isn't how it has to end. And they can look to me if they want as an example, because I'm not just saying this, I'm also doing this myself. And that's what my Instagram is all about too. Like a lot of it, some of it's health, but a lot of it is about like my own personal journey and stuff like that, and things that I am finding in my day-to-day life and stuff. And so if it resonates with a person, that's what I want, is to have somebody recognize that they are worthy of more than what they give themselves credit for,
Mm, yes, that's beautiful.
in every way. So
Yeah,
it all comes back to the self-love.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And I think those of us who are called to serve the world in that way, we tend to be the empaths of the world, the people who can just really want everybody to feel good. We just want everybody to know how great it is when you get to the point where you can be great with yourself and love yourself, and that how that could change the world literally. Imagine if everyone loved themselves, how different the world would be.
Yeah. I think it was the Dalai Lama said that if we taught children how to meditate, that in like just a couple of years, there would be no more wars and stuff like that. And it's just like
one generation. Yeah. Yeah. Crazy. But yet we don't do it. I don't know why. What are your dreams for your children?
I want them to grow up feeling happy with who they are as a person, authentically who they are, that they don't have to feel shame for whatever story may be in their head, and that they know that they are loved and that they can do anything that they put their mind to.
I love that. So tell me.
Which I guess is the same as what I want for everybody.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. It really is the best we can hope for in this world.
Yeah.
And the more people are doing their part to make that happen, it just grows one person at a time, compounds.
It's the
If you
ripple
connect
effect.
with one person, they connect with however many people, and then they connect with however many people. And it compounds. It's not just one-to-one. So when people say that, like they want to help change the world one person at a time, I think that's what they mean. It's not just one person at a time. It's a whole butterfly effect. It's like this amazing fractalization of energy that takes place.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
It's beautiful. And it's funny that you say that, because for me recently, this is going to sound weird, but when I go like for my walks or whatever, and I see something like, oh, I don't want to pick up someone else's trash or something like that. In my head, I literally say to myself, be the change that you want to see in the world. If I'm not going to do it, how can I expect anybody else to do it? And if I'm not going to do it, how can I expect my children to do something like that? So I need to be the example. I need to be the one doing these things that, okay, maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I don't want to pick up that dirty, like those toothpick, whatever.
Why do people leave those around? I see them all over the place.
By the ocean. I'm like, what are you doing?
Flossers. Are people carrying them with them if they're flossing everywhere?
What's going on here? But I pick it up anyways. I turn around and pick it up anyways. And I'm just like, this is gross. But I'm like, I got hand sanitizer in the car. It's fine. And it's been out in the sun. Everything's killed. The UV killed it. It's fine. But at the same time, it's just like, okay, but it's that mind frame. Oh, I'm not going to do it. Somebody else will do it. Somebody else will do it. Somebody else will do it. No.
Yeah.
Be the change that you want to see in the world. Yeah. Because it all starts with you.
It does. You got to take responsibility. Everybody has to take 100% responsibility for themselves and not just keep passing it off and passing it off. And thankfully, I think that's catching on, like that culturally that is catching on. More people are affecting change in that way, positive change. We're getting to an inflection point of some sort.
Yeah.
And I think we're tipping towards the positive. I like that. Yeah. I like it. Oh my gosh. So what are the biggest lessons what are the biggest lessons that you've learned in life? What stands out to you as some of your biggies?
Let's see. Words matter. Words absolutely matter. I know there's that sticks and stones may break bone. Yes, they do break your heart, and they can do a lot more than that. There's a reason why it's called spelling. Words are important. And not even just what you say to other people, but what you say to yourself. Goes back to the self-love thing and your self-talk. And I think holding yourself accountable. And this isn't something that you come to, I think, when you're young. I think it's something that you grow into through your life experiences. But again, I think emulating that as a parent and as an adult, having other people, younger people, or even people my own age, having other people see that, I think that kind of spreads it out to everybody else, my kids, everybody else, so that they know, okay, this is what that looks like. This feels good to me. I like being my authentic self and still having boundaries and stuff, because then they don't feel like they're betraying. Nobody feels like they're betraying themselves, but it just, everything will flow a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So honestly, it's self-love. I really can't even just that, and having faith. I don't care if you want to call it the universe, God, source, whatever. If you have faith in something other than yourself, something greater than yourself, something greater than what is here right now, that has been huge for me. When I was a kid, I went to Bible study with my mom, and it's her that I came back into Bible study. And I don't consider myself a religious person. I grew up Catholic, and that's totally not what I believe at all, really. But I do have a lot of faith. I do have a lot of spirituality. I do believe in God. I have found that for me, when I'm going through the thick of it and I'm bare boned on my knees, bawling my eyes out because I am in a tight spot and I don't know where to turn or what to do, I that's when I give it up and I surrender and I say, I can't do this on my own. And I just say a prayer, give it up to God, and just go on about my day. Because sometimes you can intend as much as you want sometimes, but some experiences you maybe are meant to have. And you can pray all you want that you're not going to have them, but sometimes that's what your soul needs for its growth. And during those times when things are going not the way that you want them to go, it's like when you're in the riptide and stuff and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to get, tossed around. I don't know what's going on. You just hold your breath for as long as you can and are under the surface and let all the turmoil on top, and just have faith that when you pop your head out, you'll be able to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. You got to surrender it, and you have to trust that whatever you're going through is for a reason. There is a lesson to be learned. You're supposed
And
to
you
be
may
going
not
through
know
it.
it for
You may
like
not.
years.
Yep.
But I didn't know for almost 20 years, actually 20 years, why my ex, but if he hadn't, I wouldn't be where I was. So it's just,
Yeah. And what about your blessings? What are your biggest blessings in life?
oh, my biggest blessings in life. My kids, my partner. I bought my own first house, and it's not huge, but it's my own and it's my home, and my kids feel safe here and we feel happy and we have dance parties here. And I have a car that's stable. I was blessed to be able to trade my car in. And because of the craziness of how the value of cars and stuff, the car payment was the same buying this newer car that was bigger too. So I'm like, this works out great. Thank you, God. Having my girlfriends that I met down here have been a huge blessing for me. It took 5 years of living down here for me to meet people that I actually connected to, because I'm from Mass originally and I live in Rhode Island now. And I do have some friends from home that live in the area. So I have 3 girlfriends that live in the area within 20 minutes or so of me. So I'm blessed to have that as well. But the girlfriends that I met that actually live in the same town as me now, I met them, and honestly, if it wasn't for them, I don't know how I would have dealt with a lot of what has occurred the past few years, like from the lockdowns and everything like that, and just trying to maintain your sanity with having kids and being in a house cooped up with family for that extended period of time and stuff, to sounding boards of, hey, this is what's going on in my life and it's really hard and I'm feeling it right now and I need some support, to, oh shit, the kid's sick and I've got to go to work and I can't bring him to daycare. Can anybody watch? So
Yep.
I am very blessed to have a wonderful support network.
Mm, that's
That is
wonderful.
something that I absolutely, and you don't have to have a big one. You
Yeah.
just need a few key people that you know that you can call on at any time that would do anything for you. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's your tribe.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is important to find a few core people like that. I love that. All right. Last question.
Yeah.
See if you can answer in one word. What is the most important thing?
The most important thing of,
I love that answer.
I think, I don't know if you broke up a little bit. Did you just
Yeah.
say what is the most important thing and that was
Yep.
it? Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
good. I'm like, I don't know. He froze a little crazy rain going on. So I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure the storm
You're
wasn't like
glitching. You're
interrupting
glitching.
anything.
No, it's okay. You're glitching, but it's all right. I'm still getting the word. It's like your video is glitching, but I'm getting your
Okay.
words. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll ask you one
Okay,
more
good.
time.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
is
That's what was
okay?
happening with you too.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay, it's good. I got it. All right. You know what's weird?
Love
Wait a
is the
minute.
most important thing because I think
Yeah, I'm just looking. I'm going to cut this out. I'm just looking. It says participants 3. I think you're in here twice. I don't know if that's affecting a signal or not. It doesn't matter.
oh, now Zoom tells me there's an update.
Oh,
Lovely.
there we go. All right. Actually, that definitely helped. That made it better because now there's only 2
Oh, okay.
participants. Okay. Yeah, that made it
Okay.
better. Yeah. I think it was
Um,
trying to get, I don't know, it was trying to catch on. All right. I'm
I
gonna
was
ask you
I
that.
hate it. Really, yes.
I'll ask
Go
you that one
ahead.
more time and then we'll finish up. Um,
Third time.
okay. So, last question. If you can try to answer in one word, what is the most important thing?
Love.
Love.
Yeah,
Makes the world go around, right?
it does. People say money does, and I don't know about that. Love for me, that's if you come from a place of love, like, because think about it, there are people that are so poor in other countries and they are so happy,
Mm,
so happy. And then there's people here that have it all that aren't happy at all.
yeah.
So I really love and like how you feel about yourself, and that portrays out to the rest of the world. And so I think love just really makes or breaks it.
Yes, it does. On that note, thank you, Kate, for having such a beautiful, big, open heart today and going through and being so honest and vulnerable about the experiences of your life. I know that everyone's going to get so much out of this. I'm really excited to share it with the world. So thank you so much for spending
My
this time with
pleasure,
me.
Missy.